You are listening to Inside the Hive on the Charlotte Hornets on SI podcast. Joining me as he does every Monday evening, Sam Dracula. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We are battling through the North Carolina pollen. There are videos online, if you're not familiar with what's going on here in Charlotte and North Carolina, folks in the air, in an airplane, you can see it's like a horror movie out here, man. But it's a nice rainy day as we're recording this, so it doesn't work like this, but hopefully it does. At least give us a little break from the pollen. But otherwise, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I told you off air just the other week, right? Like in England, you can get these pollen injections that I don't understand how they work. You need to look into them. Surely stuff like that has to be available in the US. Everyone needs to look into it. And you talked about this, like, pollen in the air, evil in the air. There was a movie where, like, nature. Have you seen the movie where, like, nature fought back and made people kill each other?
Yeah, was it The Happening?
With The Happening, yes.
Yeah,
The Happening. That was the first thing when he said that. I was like, this is The Happening. This is the nature's way of fighting back, of getting your eyes runny and your nose blocked. This is the start of The Happening.
Yep. I thought, silly me thought, I'm going into year 10 of my time in Charlotte, and I thought by now I developed some type of immunity towards it. Nope.
It gets worse. I'm convinced you go through like these peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
Well, look, I hope it gets better for you. I'm on the road this week. I'm recording from currently, and I'm feeling very British today, Sam. So you ready for my day? I had fish and chips for dinner, right? The classic British dinner. And then I'm staying at Bisham Abbey, which is on the site of an old ancient Royal British monastery. And the abbey, which is built now, which I'm staying in, was first built in 1260, Sam, which I Googled this before the show, 516 years before the USA existed. Okay, so when we talk about old in England, we mean old. None of this like, oh, back in the 1800s. No. This is really old. And Bisham Abbey, I'm here for my day job. It's one of our Olympic training hubs. So like our field hockey team internationally are based here. We've got a few other organizations and Olympians and teams who are kind of based here as like a training hub. And it's owned by Sport England, who I work for. So it's a government-owned facility. So yeah, feeling very British in an old British abbey, eating fish and chips. The only thing that isn't very British is talking about the Charlotte Hornets, which is what we're going to do today.
Let's do it. I am curious if that place is haunted. When I hear something super old like that,
it probably is. So let's about Bisham Abbey ghost. Here we go. Yes, the ghost of Elizabeth Hobie haunts a tiny and ancient Bisham Abbey in Berkshire, which is where I am right now. So yeah, it's absolutely haunted. Everyone have a Google of Bisham Abbey. You can go in and have a look there at where I am right now. So I will let you know. Hopefully if you see like something fall down in the background of the Zoom, that's the ghost of the Abbey coming to get me live. She's horrified by watching the Charlotte Hornets, which is what I'll be doing later today. Before we get into our episode, so our episode today, we're going to first half part one, we're going to be talking some reasons for optimism because look, we know it's been a pretty negative season for the most part. And we had our kind of like 5-year sliding doors moment podcast the other week, which was mostly negative. And we wanted to balance it out. And we want to finish the season on a little bit positive. So we're going to do some reasons for optimism for the future. The end, we're also going to talk about LaMelo Ball's future, some potential trades. You might have seen that I wrote a piece for CLTure, which is pinned to my profile on X and on Blue Sky. You can go check that out. Kind of like analyzing LaMelo Ball's season and looking at the possible trade market. So we're going to be talking about if the Hornets should move on from LaMelo Ball in part 2. But before we do that, I do have to make a quick announcement. This is going to be my penultimate episode of the Hornets and SI podcast because I'm going to be leaving the podcast at the end of the regular season. Sam already knows, everyone, don't worry, I'm not breaking news to him live on air. But look, I've had an opportunity come up to combine my writing and podcasting together. I've been looking for something of that nature since leaving Sports Illustrated as a writer, which again was my own decision. No bad malice there. It just wasn't the right fit for me anymore. And yeah, I've said to Sam, want to finish out this regular season. We have this show this week. Then we have our end of season, our 5th annual award show, which is happening next week, which we're going to do, which will be our final show. And then me and Sam are going to be going our separate ways, right? Which is it's going to be a sad time because I've really enjoyed jumping on here and talking hoops with you every week since when did we start? I mean, was it? I'm trying to even think now. What was our first episode? Were we doing this for? I think it was September. I think we started September
because preseason.
Yeah, I don't think we did the off season. Yeah. So we've been going here for a good 7-8 months. And look, I've been really proud of the content we've done in another really challenging season. Yeah. I feel like we've covered this team just about as closely as you can with a weekly podcast episode. So, just want to say a big thank you to you. Big thank you to the listeners for sticking with us. I'm not going to be going too far. You're going to be able to find my words. You're going to be able to find my voice. That announcement's coming later in the week. But in terms of this feed, what's going to happen, Buzzer Beaters, which is the podcast done by Atticus and Eric, they're going to continue and they're going to cover this entire off season. So everything about the draft, everything about free agency, the end of the season, all going to be covered by Buzzer Beaters. Hornets and Heartbreak, who you might be thinking, hey, we've not heard from Tim and Mark for a while. Look, they are also going to be stopping at the end of the season, and they have their final episode, which is going to be coming out in a few weeks as well. So look, it's going to be a bit of a change. This podcast feed is going to be live and well for the rest of the regular season. It's going to be live and well for the off season. After that, we're probably going to be retiring this feed. Okay, it's not going to be going completely, but we're going to be retiring it until we have a little bit more clarity in the future. So just want to say, look, big thank you for everyone. I think this feed now has been running for, I want to say about 3 years now. When we started this feed, the Hornets gone to the play-in. They were the league past darlings. Everything was pointing up, and the belief was, hey, we're launching this at the perfect time. Did not go that way. But it didn't mean we didn't cover the team in a fair, independent way. We praised the team where we actually should, and we criticized them where we should as well. So, sorry for the little opening monologue, but a lot I wanted to get out and address. And Sam, it's been a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to this next 2 episodes we've got together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've enjoyed doing this podcast with you this season, despite the product on the court. And I've enjoyed every second of it. I'm excited for your new opportunity that you're going to talk about later. And then for me, I'll just be doing my YouTube thing. So if you're familiar with me over there on the YouTube side, then that's going to continue as normal.
All right. Well, look, let's get into our reasons for optimism. Sam,
yes,
give me a reason for optimism for Charlotte Hornets fans as they stare down the barrel of another bleak regular season and a potential difficult-looking offseason coming up.
So, number one on my list, and the first thing that came to mind, despite what we're about to talk about, this franchise still has LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and you can include Mark Williams into this. 3 guys, right? Under 24. LaMelo, Mark Williams, 23. Brandon Miller, 22 years old. Brandon Miller on a rookie deal, 2 years left on that. Mark Williams has 1 year deal, 1 year remaining on his rookie deal, right? LaMelo's entering the next extension. But like when you look at it and as far as young talent goes, it's despite their faults, and these are really nice young players with untapped potential still. So there is a lot to be optimistic about around those 3 gentlemen, and whether they're together or separate on playing on different teams or on the floor or not, those guys are individually special in their own way, and collectively we haven't seen the results of it. But if they do stick together, I think there is hope in that 3, like that trio, in the near future.
Yeah, look, for years, in the Bobcats years, in the early Hornets years, it was, hey, Charlotte have got a lot of good pieces, role players, but they don't have the high end talent that you need to build around. And I think Charlotte are in a better place, like you just said. But from that perspective, they have got some young, high-end talent. Now, maybe not the highest end, okay?
Yes.
Maybe not Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, like maybe not quite that, but still, high-end talent, which is impactful on the floor, would have value in the trade market, as we saw in that Mark Williams deal. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, I think is probably the guy whose stock might be highest despite the injury of all three of those guys. So I do think there is reason for positivity having young guys, high pedigree on this roster.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the untapped potential part of it, because in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, Brandon Miller could be in that conversation of being in the high end, right, of young talent in the league, right, before he's 25 years old. LaMelo, same thing. Like, that room is still there. Like, if Mark Williams develops a jumper, like we've been kind of seeing flashes of, there's a real pathway for him to be like a legit 20, 25 million, $30 million a year guy if that jumper is fully realized, right? So there is like a window where these guys can turn the corner and become something like really, really, really special. And they're part of the franchise. They're under contract right now. So the Hornets have that in their pocket as they go into the offseason and figure out what to do with the rest of the team.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to combine two together here so we can get through them quicker. The Hornets are in the best position they've ever been in the history of the franchise in terms of future draft assets. If you look at all the future first-round picks that they own, and especially, and this is what I'm going to combine here, have any team's futures looked more bleak than the Miami Heat and Dallas Mavericks in the last 6 months from where we thought they were going to be 6 months ago?
Yeah, from like preseason expectations to now. Yeah. It's pretty rough.
I mean, Philly, you could maybe make the argument with them and Phoenix, but like Miami and especially Dallas are right up there. Okay. Yeah. The Mavericks have Anthony Davis, often injured Anthony Davis. Kyrie Irving tore his ACL. They own their future first round pick in 2028. I think it might be 2027. It's one of the two. I think it's 8. And Miami, they own the future first in either 27 and 28, depending if they make the playoffs or not. And just the value of those picks has gone up this year. And the Hornets haven't even done anything, right? Yeah. I mean, Miami, I don't really know what their future is. Like, they've got a great coach, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, but it doesn't really feel like it has a super high upside. If they flame out and don't even make the playoffs this year, there could be like pretty sweeping changes there. So while the on-court product isn't great right now, I think the Hornets have never been better placed to upgrade their talent in the next 3 seasons to come, either by making these picks or by trading these picks. And that's a position that the Hornets have normally been like, if they don't have anything to trade but their own picks. And they never wanted to trade their own first round picks. And when they did, in the Kai Jones deal, it backfired horribly and will probably make them think we're never trading our own picks ever again. So, great to see Miami and Dallas struggling. Love seeing those L's roll in every single night. Although Dallas need to not struggle too much because they might get that first pick. If they go and get like freaking Cooper Flag or something of that nature, like that's going to be so frustrating. But that's one of my reasons for optimism. Future draft assets, probably 3 to 5th best future asset haul in the league.
I'm going to piggyback on that one to talk about the cap, because the Hornets don't owe, outside of LaMelo Ball is the only real big money long-term commitment the Charlotte Hornets have, which allows them flexibility to do another Nurkic type deal where they take on money and get draft capital in exchange for an expiring, right? And Nurkic could be traded again for that exact reason. But you look at Josh Green at 13.6, Nurkic at 19.3, Miles Bridges at 25 million next season, Grant Williams, they have options if they find themselves in a situation where they want to collect more draft capital in return for punting, so to speak, on cap freedom. Now they don't have much cap space, but they have cap flexibility, and that's the next best thing, because I like what the front office has done largely and how their patient approach. We haven't seen what they're capable of when they have money to spend, and that's a scary thing to think about. That's a real that'll be the real a real test for Jeff
Lance
Peterson and crew.
Stevenson, Gordon
Yeah.
Hayward, Al Jefferson is the one that you could argue kind of worked out. But yeah, the Charlotte having money to spend has not always been a good thing for this franchise.
Exactly. So they're in a spot now where they can kind of play musical chairs with these cap figures while collecting future draft capital. And then if the time comes, they have those they can have those medium-sized contracts, the contracts that are in the 13 to 20 million-ish range that are super tradable if they want to bring in a guy where they want to make the numbers add up to bring in a all-star level, fringe, all NBA level type of guy if and when the roster's mature enough for something like that. So I think there's hope there with the salary cap as it's currently stated right now.
I think the vision is a little bit like what Cleveland had, right? Cleveland drafted Mobley, drafted Darius Garland, and then made a savvy trade to pick up Jarrett Allen, and then used all their draft assets, etc., and some good young players in Larry Markin to get Donovan Mitchell to like launch them right in from kind of like interesting young team to legitimate contender. And I think that's kind of the vision for what I think the Hornets are well placed with. And like you said, they've got a lot of kind of like mid-sized money on their books that can be packaged and trade, but none of it is like really bad value money. Yeah, exactly. Like apart from maybe Grant Williams because of the injury stuff. We'll see what he looks like when he comes back next year. But it's either like the team aren't going to be trying to win next year. So having Nurkic on the Bucks at 18 million or whatever it is, it doesn't really have a negative effect in terms of impacting your competitiveness. So yeah, I agree with that one. Okay, next one. There's a little bit of a big picture one. And again, it's not directly involving the Hornets yet, but I'm just going reasons for optimism. I'm calling it the fluidity of the NBA.
Okay.
If you look at the standings in the East right now, okay, I don't think there's a lot of teams there that you say like in 2 years you'd be like, well, they're still definitely going to be a playoff team. Like it feels to me like the Cavaliers are in a really good place, like mixture of like youth, talent. I think they're up there. Celtics, I agree, although they've got real salary issues coming forward where they're going to have to trade like at 1 or 2 of their like top 6 guys. That's going to have to happen with the Celtics. And how will they look with that? The Knicks have basically kind of gone all in for this team that they have. And look, they look like they'll be a good regular season team. But after that, the Pacers, the Bucks seem to be on the downside. The Pistons are having a really good year, but arguably, I still don't feel like the Hornets are too far behind the Pistons. I know that sounds crazy, but just if you like line some of the talent up, and Detroit obviously pushed to win this year. The Orlando Magic, the Hawks, the Bulls, the Heat, the Raptors, the Nets, the Sixers. Like, it's not like the West where you look over there and you go, gosh, there's going to be 7 of those teams are well ahead of the Hornets and have all the assets and flexibility and young players that they will be in 2, 3, 4 years' time. The East kind of seems wide open. And I think the fact Detroit went from whatever it was last year, 14 wins to 43 this year, like that just shows, even though it seems really dark right now for Charlotte and really far away from competing, we've seen Detroit do it quickly. We've seen Houston, who is second in the West right now. They were a joke under Steven Silas. So it always feels really bad in the moment, and things always feel really far away. And look, for sometimes they will always remain that. But there are these examples of like quick turnarounds that do happen. And they happen every single season, and there's always an unexpected team. And linked to what we've already talked about, there are some reasons to think in the future that it could be Charlotte, and they could not be too far away from being a relevant NBA team again. And they might be playing relevant basketball in March, which would be nice.
It'd be very nice. It'd be very nice. And you're not wrong. It is nice to know. It is like a double-edged thing where it's like the Hornets have been better than Detroit for like 5 years or whatever. And then all of a sudden it just flipped and Detroit's off to the races and Charlotte's regressed. Like that stings. But the other side of it is if they can do it, Charlotte can do it.
Yeah, they added Tobias Harris. They added Tim Hardaway. They went out and added veteran players and paid them a lot of money. Malik Beasley, they landed as well. That's what they went and did. The Hornets haven't tried to do that.
Well, and Detroit and Houston have been worse for longer in terms of, I guess they've drafted. There's a better way of saying it. They've been drafting higher more often than Charlotte.
Yeah.
So they've acquired more high pedigree draft picks and it's all clicking now. Where Charlotte were pretty lucky to jump up for LaMelo and up for Brandon Miller. Unlucky last year to drop down for Salon for the 6th pick. So like with this upcoming lottery, knocking on wood that it goes well. I'm not even being greedy for the first overall pick. Let's say they get a top 3 pick out of this year's draft. Then I think you're looking at a much more comparable set of young talent compared to Detroit that can go like 4 or 5 deep with their young guys, and Houston similarly, where Charlotte's kind of limited at 3 right now. Mm-hmm. And they'll be at 4 with the Flag or Harper or whomever, right? So yeah, I think you can piece this thing together and get to a happy place here in Charlotte. And it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It will happen. It has to happen. At least the playoff streak is gonna end at some point soon. Like it's gonna happen. After that, who the hell knows?
The KJ Simpson disrespect. They're not part of your core, Sam. I mean, just snubbed.
Sign a real contract, then talk to me. No, I like KJ, but you know what I'm saying.
All right. Give me your next one.
So this is a quick one. Charles Lee. I think there's still time, so you never know. But there has been plenty of opportunity during this rough season for Charles Lee to lose the locker room. And I've seen no sign of that thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we just got there, but he could just be the most likable guy on the planet as well. I like listening to him. He seems very charming. But I'm as sitting here talking to you, thinking about it, how much how all in he was immediately getting involved in Summer League and traveling and seeing Brandon Miller in Vegas. Like he seems super eager to build relationships with this locker room. And this is me speculating that throughout these rough times, having those relationships with these players makes it easier to stomach these poor outings or these bad runs they have in quarters or these tough losses when things aren't going well overall. And any other coach, it's perfectly conceivable to see the Hornets just check out from this man. And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen them give up on him. And I think that gives me confidence as a viewer and fan going forward, and makes me excited to see what year 2 with Charles Lee looks like.
Yeah. I don't on my list too. Look, I don't think we can sit here and say that, Charles Lee looks like one of the best young head coaches in the league and the Hornets have hit a home run higher. But I think we can say he's a real NBA coach and he's not a Monty Williams in Detroit.
Right.
Or a Vinny Del Negro with the LA Clippers. Like, he's a respectable coach who has a good feel of what he's doing. And look, like first year head coaches always get better in the second year because it is, no matter what anyone says and how prepared they are, it is just different going from being the assistant to the head coach and everything. Not even to do with the coaching, but it's all the other side. It's the media. It's having to manage your staff. It's all those things which get trickier. So you talked about you like, hearing him interviewed and everything. I find Charles really frustrating because I feel like he's extremely filtered with the media and always super positive. And I'm pretty sure he isn't that way with the players. In fact, he even talked about the other day how he's been learning this season how at times he needs to get on guys and at times he needs to not say anything. And I've never heard him call anyone out negatively in a press conference once all year. There's not been one time where he's broken character. Yeah. He's always been the smiley, happy, positive coach. And I guess from the media, you sometimes hope to see, I don't want to say it's authenticity because I think it is authentic. You just want to see an unfiltered version of it and that's selfish. And I'm not saying that's the right thing for him to do because that could be one of the things that does damage relationships with players. Okay.
Right.
but it also makes it harder to get a lot, I think, from when you're trying to watch out here and trying to like pull things from his press conferences. But no, you're absolutely right. I think he's a real coach. You know, when the G League team made the playoffs the other day, you know, he even said that they were, because they played Indiana, I think the same day, the G League team, the Swarm, were going to play the Mad Ants, which is the Pacers G League team. He wanted to like get the whole team to leave so they could go watch the game before their game. But it would have involved like leaving for their flight at like 6 a.m. in the morning. And he was like, yeah, nobody else wanted to do it, so we're not doing it. And it's like, you could tell like he generally would have been like, yeah, I'll get up at 4 a.m. to go watch the G League team play. And that means something, and that means something to the G League staff. And I think it just talks to his character. He's an extremely high character guy. I think that's one of the things that we have learned this year. So look, I agree. I think Charles Lee, there's nothing like, you could look at maybe like, Fernandez, Jordi Fernandez with the Nets. I think he's had a really good first year as a head coach. And I think he probably takes like the title of like first time head coach crown of who looks best. I think he's probably done a better job than Charles Lee this year, even with the talent he's had available. But I think Charles Lee has done a decent job. There were two stretches in the year. There was the stretch about a quarter of the way through the season, if you remember, when they had the players only meeting after the Houston loss. And they had another stretch, I want to say in like February time after the All-Star break. They built the Lakers and they went on a bit of a losing run after that. Those two stretches, and there's probably about 15 games combined in those two stretches. They look like uncompetitive, and is this team look like a lack of caring at times and lack of attention to detail. I would say the other 60 odd games to this point, they've probably, you know, been in games that they shouldn't, especially the first half of the year before the tank really set sail down the hill. You know, they were in a lot of games with massive talent deficits, and the defense was better than I think the personnel he had at his availability. I think the biggest issue for him has been the offense. Like, this probably shouldn't have been such a poor offensive team early in the year when they had Brandon Miller available, LaMelo Ball available. You know, Miles Bridges really struggled early. So it's not been perfect, but with any first-time head coach, like a bunch of those after year one, you're kind of being like, oh, I don't know about this guy. And I don't think we have that situation in Charlotte. Okay. I'm moving on to my next one. Really quick one. The Hornets have had 41 different starting lineups this year in 75 games. That's the most in the league. The most in league history is 50, which was the Memphis Grizzlies either last year or the year before. Just sometimes we look into all, you know, the detail around how's someone playing like this, the rotations, why isn't this playing well? Like, at the end of the day, and I'll actually tie this into another one. You still had Ball, Bridges, Williams, Miller have played, I want to say like 100 minutes together this season. And they've had 41 different starting lineups. You do that at any NBA team, and they are not going to hit their stride and find their flow of knowing where everyone should be on offense and defense, looking well connected and functioning well as a team. So I still think there's reason for optimism that it's not like the Hornets have had everyone available and they've been a disaster. Okay, there's been a significant reason. And that's the same excuse for the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying that if they were healthier, that this would be a playoff team. I think the flaws are still there and are still much larger. But I don't think, again, the kind of looking at the standings, you'd go, the Hornets stink. Well, I think the Hornets are pretty much in a better place than the Wizards right now and Utah. But you wouldn't be able to tell that really from the standings. And that's partly down to injuries.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And the plus side is we've seen like these random like Nick Smith Jr. games, these KJ Simpson games, like Diabate games, Salon double games, like these random acts of excellence from these guys in amongst all this turmoil that it is reason to be hopeful, right? So I like it. I like it.
It is, as long as I remember Steve Clifford and James Borrego and all these guys saying like, this is so good for the young guys, right? The young guys learn so much for this. It's hard now, but you're going to see it's going to pay off in the long run. And then what's happened most of the time in the long run? Those young players aren't on the team anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, where's the payoff? We were told 2 years ago we were going to see the reward, and they've been traded, released, or moved on in some other way. And I think that's the challenge sometimes. It's like, as long as if it does eventually lead to something, I think you can go back and point. But I'm also sometimes skeptical that it will always. And we've not really seen that enough, I don't think, in the last couple of years in Charlotte.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But like a lot of those guys aren't really in the NBA anymore either. It's like it's hard to like
McGowan's, Thor,
Book
Buck Knight, Kai Jones.
Yeah. So it's like these guys are fringe guys. And I don't know if it would have worked out in any circumstance, but it's nice to have those moments where maybe KJ Simpson can have a chance to be a guy that sticks around and maybe bounces around from team to team with a full-time deal, not on a two-way. But we'll see. Well, we kind of saw with Diabate, I guess. He got his deal out of his over performance as a two-way guy. So we'll see though. We'll see. I want to mention the ownership.
Yes.
And the investment into the practice facility.
Yes. In bold on my list. This is one of my big ones.
So I actually drove past it. I had no idea the groundbreaking ceremony was that later that day. Like I saw it on Twitter like that next day, but I was randomly driving past it in Uptown. But I, as a fan, don't really care about the practice facility as an entity. But what I do care about is that this ownership is showing intent off the court and doing all the little things they can think of to make this a competitive professional team on the court and showing patience in doing so. Like they're controlling the things they can control, right? Reimagining the arena, building this practice facility. That's cutting a check, pulling some permits, and hiring some contractors to make something happen. The on the court stuff is a little more difficult because you're competing with 29 other teams and you're limited in what you can do. And I think that side of things will come eventually. But I love that these guys are ticking the boxes off really attacking the things they can control and showing that they are serious about this. That the era of the Hornets being a dumpster fire or whatever pejorative you've heard about the Hornets when national folks talk about this team like it's still ran by MJ or whomever, that era's gone, right? And you hear with the Cooper Flag stuff, like, oh, Cooper Flag want to go to the Hornets. There shouldn't be a stigma on this version of the team, and I think it's earned. I think this new ownership through 2 years, they haven't earned that scarlet letter that the other ownerships of past eras have earned yet. Like it's a fresh slate, and I love how they've taken this approach to really be a serious basketball franchise. And I'm as a fan, I'm really appreciative of it.
Very well said. I agree with everything you said. It's absolutely massive. It is where the staff and the players will spend 90% of their time at work is in that practice facility. And it is absolutely huge. All these teams have upgraded. And I will say, because this does get forgotten about, the actual agreed terms and agreement on building this new practice facility was in place under Michael Jordan's ownership. Now, I'm not saying that these new owners haven't scaled it up, that they haven't made it come to fruition with actually injecting the cash to make it happen, but it was at least beginning under the Jordan era. But I completely agree. The reputation of Hornets ownership has completely changed to how it was under Jordan. And how do I know this? Look, I listen and read to enough people who are very linked in the league. And you used to hear all the time at the end of talking about the Hornets that, people go, and then they couldn't afford it. Or there'd be some jab at the, ownership, management, front office. And now I don't just not hear that. I actually hear the opposite. People go, well, a lot of people around the league are really liking what Jeff Peterson's doing in this front office. A lot of people around the league are looking at the new ownership and saying they're doing the smart thing. So it's a great point. It's probably, I think, actually, if I was to rank these, and maybe we should have done this, in terms of biggest reason for optimism, I think ownership is one of the biggest competitive advantages that we don't talk about enough in the NBA. And I think they've made a really smart start. And by the way, there is no way that Rick Schnall, Mr. Duke, right? There is no way Cooper Flag is not coming to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm just telling everybody right now, you can just get rid of those stories of the Hornets win the lottery. Someone will go on TV, someone will write the article the next day saying that Cooper Flag should go back to Duke and not go to the Charlotte Hornets. And I'm telling you categorically, it's someone searching for clicks, and it will not happen.
No, I would be willing to put money on it that if the Hornets had the first pick, Cooper Flag will be a Hornet. Like, there's zero doubt in my mind that would happen.
Agreed. Another quick one. Reason for optimism. Look, it sucked losing Trey Mann for the whole year. Reason for optimism. There should be some discount, right, on his next restricted free agency contract. Like, at least the silver lining to this whole thing, instead of maybe being, I don't know, 15 to 18 million per year, I now don't see a world where probably he gets more than 10 or 12, like at the max. And that could have gone a different way if he'd been like 6th man of the year. So good silver lining.
Yeah, I agree. I had that noted as well. Another quick one. This is the healthiest LaMelo's been since 2022.
Yeah, it's progress.
And when you're just talking about building here, positive signs. It didn't go the other way. He's going in the right direction with games played and availability. So that's a big plus. And then similarly with Mark Williams, it's a bit of a different situation, but Mark has been the most available he's ever been as well. So there's positivity in two key players sticking it out.
Yeah. The front office finally values vets. Taj Gibson, Seth Curry. Like, having these guys on the team is what myself, you, other Hornets fans, people who cover the team have been calling for years in that Borrego Clifford era. Yeah. And look, we probably haven't seen all of the impact because a lot of the impact that those guys make is on the practice court. It's behind the scenes. But, you know, I've heard enough. I've seen enough interviews now with the coaches, with the staff to understand the impact they've had. And the team should be having at least one player in that Taj Gibson role, if not two, really, for a rebuilding team, when like winning isn't always necessarily the biggest priority and focus. Should be guys who are just like culture setters and guys who are kind of be the conduit between the coach and the team. And they've got that in Kemba Walker, who they brought back as well. You can do that from the coaching staff side. They got it in Taj Gibson, and it's just refreshing because it's simple and straightforward, but it's something Mitch Kupchak ignored for years, and it infuriated me. So I want to give it a shout out.
Yeah, and these guys are willing leaders and mentors. Like, Gordon Hayward was the oldest guy on the team, but he wasn't there to be a mentor. He wanted to get paid. Like, he just happened to be the veteran on the team. He wasn't the vet on the team that guys went to. Like, early was Biz, and they got rid of him, right? So it's like, what are we doing here? So, yeah, to your point, yeah, Taj being a willing and capable locker room guy, Seth Curry, a willing and capable locker room guy. Grant Williams, to a certain degree as well. You know, we saw that in the offseason, you know. So there's some having those pillars of high value character guys is crucial in this phase of the Charlotte Hornets for sure. This is where it gets tough. I'm running out. I will say, going into next season, speaking of Grant Williams, because in November, okay, the Hornets were the 13th ranked defense in the month of November. And that's with Grant Williams, like, he played 12 games. He's at the peak of his powers before, you know, he wasn't available anymore. Musa Diabate was playing, like 23 minutes a night. Like
Mark Williams was still out with a foot sprain at this point.
Right. And Brandon Miller was the leading minutes getter at that point. And like, the defense was looking really strong. November and January, for some reason, things were just clicking defensively. Like, that was probably their peak. But in November specifically, Grant, Moose, Miller was leading the team in steals, right? Just for perspective, the Hornets right now lead over the course of the season are ranked 24th in defense. So it was a real like highlight of the year that month defensively on that end. And I say that to say going into next season, assuming Grant comes back healthy, having Grant and Moose off the bench as your defensive anchors or options is a really like enviable place to be when you're just looking at roster building and matchups, right? So that I feel comfort in that those in like what you want to call them the eighth and ninth man, whatever you want, wherever you want to slot them in the rotation.
The whole center position. This was another ones I had is got super deep.
Yeah,
right? Grant Williams, Musa Diabate, Mark Williams, and Yusuf Nurkic. I mean, I'm not like they're kind of a bunch of I don't know, couple of like borderline starting, like a starting center and a bunch of backups, but that's a pretty deep group right there.
Yeah, and then you
and they all do different things too.
Yeah, you have all that, and then like I was mentioning earlier, like if Mark develops a jumper, then you have Coach Lee has some real like levers to pull on both ends if you want to get creative, and we can kind of see, you know, what they can do with specific matchups, having everybody available to him at the same time, and knowing what these guys do well now after a year of kind of trial and error and availability and non-availability. So I think there's a lot of comfort in that, and a good reason to be optimistic with the bigs.
Yeah. Tidjane Salaün. Last 8 games, Sam. Okay. 41% from the field. Right. I know that doesn't sound great. The season is 33%. So, and that's taken. So that's pretty good. Okay. 8.8 points, 6.6 rebounds, a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and is definitely getting to the foul line a little bit more. I think still looks pretty out of control when he's dribbling the basketball. But I think you can at least feel positive that Salaün has made progress from the start of the season to the end of the season.
Yes.
It's still a long way away, but it is at least trending in the right direction. So that is another reason to feel positive, because he's not somewhere where like his confidence has gone and got worse and he's just shrunk as the years gone on. I feel like he's stayed pretty consistent with who he is, and everyone talks about his self-belief and his confidence. And we've seen the level of play improve a little bit. 3-point shooting, still not there. It needs to get better. Still in the high 20% last 8 games. It's been like that for the whole season. But there are other aspects of his game which have improved.
I'm glad you brought that up. It was pretty low on my list, but I've noticed the same thing. And realistically, understanding that he was a project on draft night and that the Hornets were in this for the long haul, for him to be at this stage is probably pretty realistic to where he should be if you're kind of mapping out his rookie year, given how raw he was on draft night comparatively, right? And then going forward, the hope is he doesn't, that this is the worst he'll be. And you'll see those incremental, like you probably won't have the 3-month run, but like a month here, a month there, where he really puts it together, those sustained moments. And over the next couple of years, that's what I'm hoping for now in the next like 2 or 3 years, where he has these real stretches where he's a legit role player for the squad. And I think at this pace, that's in play as they keep him as that like 9th, 10th man in the rotation, which, you know what, is something I didn't fully expect for him to play this much at this stage, to be involved as often as he was, as early as he was. I expected him to spend the majority of the year in the G League and then really get play time towards like February on. But the fact that he's been around this whole time for the most part is admirable. And I think he's right where he really should be at this stage of his career. And the hope is he continues to build on it.
Yeah, look, I think if you ask me where did I think he would be, I think 3-point shooting would have been a little bit further along, because his open catch and shoot numbers are pretty good, and he's missed a lot of very open catch and shoots this year. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that, but I'm probably a little bit more optimistic in his, I guess, like he's not super turnover prone. His feel for the game, which still isn't great, but I mean, I thought it was terrible coming out of the draft. Like I didn't think he'd know where to go or what to do or how to make a pass, and he has been able to do that. So that's on that side of things. Okay, I got 3 left here. This could be a reason to be optimistic, but we don't know yet. Seth Curry could lead the NBA in 3-point shooting. All right. He's on the verge. He's made 44.8% of his threes this year. He's made 77 threes. He needs to make 5 more threes in the next 4 games to get to the qualifying number of 82 threes made. Now he's at 44.8%. The next guy who's already made the numbers you need to is Taurean Prince at 44.1%, Levine at 43.9%, and Kennard at 43.7%. So it feels to me like if he can get to those 5 threes made in the next 4 games, which I feel like him and the team have to know this.
Oh, definitely. They talk about it every game.
Absolutely. That he could lead the NBA in 3-point shooting. And Sam, it would be the most forgettable 3-point shooting leading league performance in the history of the... There'll be a question in like 20 years to be like, which Charlotte Hornet led the entire NBA in 3-point percentage? And people are going to be going, who the heck was that? And it's going to be Seth Curry at age 34. So I hope he can do it. And it could be a reason. It's not really a reason for optimism. I just wanted to bring this up because it's good timing for here. But do you think he's going to do it?
So, no.
You don't? I think they're going to try really hard to make it happen. At this point, what else left is there?
I think they'll try, but like he doesn't really hit multiple threes in a game. Like it doesn't happen that often. And
he's not taking any half-court heaves. I know that for the rest of the year.
Like he went 1 of 7 versus Utah. Like that stuff, like things like that have me. Like if you're gonna do it again, you got to pad your stats against the Utahs of the world.
He's gonna do it, I believe.
I hope so because I don't know this. I assume Steph has done this. And I'm wondering if Dell has done this.
I don't know if Seth has actually, just because of the frequency and volume, right? He shoots so many, it's hard to shoot that high percentage. Dell, I don't think has done it yet. I can't remember. I'll have to look this up, but he might be the first Curry to get this award.
Yeah, so you get bragging rights at the Thanksgiving table.
Maybe Dell has done it, actually, now that you think about it. I think maybe Dell has done this. I think I've heard him talking about it on the broadcast, or at least being close to it. While you're looking it up, because I can see your fingers are working.
Yeah, trying to find out.
Look, Nick Smith Jr. showed something. It's a reason for optimism.
Yes.
After 1 month of the season, it's like this guy was, albeit a late first round, but he was a first round pick. He wasn't in the rotation last year, really, apart from when people were injured. He looked kind of similar in summer league. I think there was some progress with some of the defensive side of the ball, but looked similar. And it was like, well, this guy could very easily not be on the team next year. And I think he's at least showed enough that there is some interest in if he could, improve his bits here and there. I mean, there's still loads of holes in this guy's game, massive holes. But there's been flashes and moments where you can see when it all comes together and he's taking shots, you go, oh, this could be something. And something is better than nothing, and that's what it was at the start of the season from what we've seen from him.
Yeah, I have no idea how to look this up. I'll be honest with you. I'm getting 3-point contest winners. I'm getting 3 points made winners because the record he's going for is percentage, and he needs 82 to qualify, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm baffled by it. The only thing left on my list about optimism are the odds, right? So as of right now, the Hornets have a 14% chance at the first overall pick, a 13.4% chance at the second overall pick, a 12.7% chance at the third overall pick, a 12% chance at the fourth pick, 14.8% at the fifth pick, and we're not going to discuss anything beyond that because I'm not entertaining it. All right, it's 26% for the sixth and 7 for the seventh. I don't. If you're looking at Tankathon, it'd be really difficult to catch Washington to the bottom. I don't think that's happening. I think Washington's pretty locked in.
They're locked in now. I think they're locked in where they are, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think this is about as good as it gets for lottery positioning unless the Hornets do a madness the rest of the way, because you got to watch out for New Orleans, who's right there. But pretty decent shot at getting a game changer. That even if it's not Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, etc. Like there's some high end guys in this draft class, and you want Cooper Flag. I want Cooper Flag, but if there's a year where the Hornets fall out of the top 5 when they shouldn't, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because there's some high quality talent in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. They got a 67% chance at Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VHK Edgecombe, and you can name whatever 5th guy you want, Conknipple, Malawak. And adding any of those players that would probably become the 2nd or 3rd best prospect, depending who you get. Like, even if you take out Flag and Harper, I would say Bailey, Edgecombe, Knipple would be the 3rd best prospect on this team instantly. So that's a good place to be in. It's a good place to be in. And they've got pretty much as good a chance as anyone. While you were talking there, I've checked. Del Curry did lead the NBA in 3-point percentage in the 98-99 season. Okay. So there you go. Steph Curry has never done it, even though Steph Curry he shot 45.5% from 3 in 2011-12 and didn't win this award because Steve Novak shot 47% from 3, and Ersan Ilyasova shot 45% from 3. So it's a tough year. Absolutely. All right, that's it. Reasons for optimism. There's a lot of good stuff going on.
Get your season
Big
picture.
Now. Yeah. And they will be cheap right now.
Yes. Which, by the way, real quick, I know the tickets are probably cheap. I haven't looked, but the energy in the building, because the last home game of the season was yesterday as we're recording this. And I was impressed. I'm impressed by the energy in that building, given the circumstances of everything we've seen this year.
I agree. No, whenever there's been close games or whatever, and I think I even heard Seth Curry's, why can't I remember her name? Seth Curry's wife, who does a podcast for The Ringer. Aisha Curry, yeah, thank you. She does a podcast for The Ringer. I don't even know what it covers, if I'm being honest. But she went on the Bill Simmons podcast, and Bill was talking to her about being in Charlotte. And she was like, the crowd is unbelievable. Like, they've done the arena renovations, which is positive, and that's continued to. Another thing we didn't talk about when we talked about the investment into the practice facility, the arena renovations, another good development. I know there's been some costlier season tickets and prices gone up quite a bit, and that is a negative there. And I know some people who've been long-time loyal fans who are now being asked to pay 25% more after, some very challenging seasons. So it's not all roses everywhere, but that's one they want to mention. She talks about the crowd gets into these games like way more, like a really good crowd, better than she thought. And that comes through in the TV, like you say. Okay, let's move on to our last point for today. Look, we've teased around this. We've tiptoed around it before. LaMelo Ball could have played his last game as a Charlotte Hornet. It's possible, right? And I think now is the right time because we're not going to have the chance to be able to have this conversation in the offseason as we go our parting ways here on the podcast in a couple of weeks of where we are at with LaMelo Ball and who do we think are some of the interesting trade partners are out there. So I mean, I wrote in my big feature for CLTure about how I feel that this is the first time that I think the Hornets should explore a LaMelo Ball trade. Not that they should absolutely trade him, but it's the first time that I think they should be gauging value and looking at if there's the right deal that they should make it. Where are you at with that first before we start looking at some potential trade partners here?
I agree. I agree that there shouldn't be a rush to get him out the door, but the Hornets should be honest with themselves and look at, LaMelo. LaMelo has value, a lot of value, and the Hornets aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And there's an opportunity to hit the reset button and get something for him. And depending on what their value, I don't know if the Hornets' value would match any other teams of LaMelo, but
Hmm.
it should definitely be talked about. If they're not having conversations about this, they are. Uh, I'd be concerned. But more than ever now, I think is the time to be having those conversations internally, at least, because up until now, it didn't feel right because he wasn't really around. I always felt like if anyone trading for LaMelo last year, the year before, you're kind of asking to get fired, like because you'd be giving up multiple draft picks for a guy who can't finish a season. Like, what are you doing? Now there's more of a case where you can like say, hey, this guy probably should have been an all-star, didn't really work out given the circumstances of everything. This is what you're trading for versus like a more realized property than a more hypothetical situation where for a guy who's not really around playing.
Yeah. Okay. And Sam, when you looked and you did your exercise looking around the league, who are some of the teams that you think make sense as like if you were the one in the front office and you said, we want to take the temperature on the LaMelo Ball, who are you putting on speed dial? Who are you first calling?
Okay, so I went through every team, and then I got rid of like the wouldn't doesn't make any sense, like teams that are too good or spots taken or it's a bad fit. So I got 16 of those teams just taken off the board for me, which left me with 15 that are in play.
Conceivable.
But only 5 of those, I would say, are, I don't know. I got 8. I ended up with 8, and then I drilled it down to 4. The 4 goes as following. I don't have them in order. I'm trying to do it as I speak here. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn, Toronto, Portland, New Orleans.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that order. Brooklyn, Toronto, Portland, and New Orleans.
So I have 3 teams circled, and we only match on 1, which is interesting, right? Because you cast a pretty wide net, as did I. And I looked at, again, teams that made sense, teams that had assets that kind of like, and the only team that we overlapped on were New Orleans. And in my piece that I wrote for CLTure, originally that piece was going to have 3 proposed mock trades, and I actually did some working with people who cover these teams to try and like find an accurate trade value package to be like, would this feel too much, too less, about right for all of these deals? So I feel pretty good that none of these are too heavily weighted pro Hornets or pro the other team. And so New Orleans is on that list. I don't have any of your other teams. The other teams I had were Orlando and Sacramento. And I have proposed mock trades for all 3 of those teams, which I'm happy to go through into a little bit more detail. But before we do that, tell me a little bit about Toronto. What were the 3 teams that I didn't have? Toronto, you mentioned. What were the other 2?
So I said Toronto, Brooklyn, Portland, New Orleans.
So Portland interests me because they've got a lot of guards. They've got Scoot. Mm-hmm. They've got Fernie Simons. Why Portland?
I have Portland as it's more of a good fit for, I think, of what they could give up. Portland are going nowhere quickly. Like, all due respect to them. They don't have a marquee player. So LaMelo gives them that. And they have when you look at bad teams, like, why do you have protected picks? Like, what happened where you just don't have your picks just ready to go? They do have some lottery protected picks the next couple of years, and then they have their own picks, and they have Simons and Sharp to play with. And I think there is a fit there with there's a fit there in Portland for LaMelo there. Gets him back on the West Coast. And then for Charlotte, you have the picks and the young talent to kind of choose from because Simons is on an extension already.
Bring Scoot to Charlotte. Scoot and Brandon Miller team up.
No, they keep Scoot. They can figure that out over there. But I'm gonna need Anthony
Scoot
Simons.
and LaMelo could play together. Can you imagine if that was the heel turn, right? Like,
lock it in.
They finally do get to play together, but in Portland. Okay.
But to your point, so on my larger potential list, I did have Sacramento. And did you say Orlando?
Orlando, yeah.
Yeah, I have Orlando as like as a maybe as well. But you can go ahead.
You see, Orlando being a maybe is interesting to me because I think they're the team with like one of the most glaring needs: one for offense,
Yep.
two for a point guard, and three, they have the defensive infrastructure that you could maybe talk yourself into. Hey, we can live with LaMelo Ball's like defensive misgivings because we have all these other guys in and around them, and they've got like some semi-interesting young players and salary that could come back as well. So they stood out to me. My proposed Orlando Magic trade, which again I linked with Philip Rossman Wright, who covers the Magic for O Magic Daily. And he said like it is difficult to exactly peg value, but he kind of agreed that something around this level was fair-ish. Would be Jonathan Isaac for matching salary, which if you look on like the trade machine, he looks scary when he's paying $25 million over the next for 5 years. It's not $25 million per year. It goes down after this year, and it's also I think only $8 million guaranteed because of injury prevention stuff. So he's essentially in there as a salary filler. The real reason you're doing the trade is you're getting back Anthony Black, who is a tough 6'7" combo guard, not a great outside shooter, but a really good defender, a really good processor, passer. I think probably fits the Charles Lee world of competitive joy, if we want to use that terminology. Ticks some of those boxes. A Drew Holiday-esque defender, who Charles Lee coached in obviously Milwaukee and in Boston. Not to the level of Giroux, but has some of the length and tools and anticipation and strength that you'd be used in a similar sort of way and could potentially develop into that. And then 2 first-round picks. The Orlando's 2025 first-round pick, which is probably going to be like a late lottery, but probably more likely like 15, 16, 17. And another future first-round pick in 2029, which is top 10 protected. So, basically 2 mid-ish first-round picks, a good young player or interesting young player, Anthony Black. I'll stop short of calling him good just yet because he's not proven that much. So a young player, 2 first-round picks, and salary matching for LaMelo Ball. What are your feelings on that?
So when looking at Orlando in my maybe list, that's why I struggle with the player side because they have 2 first-round picks this year and they have future ones to play with. So like that's covered, that's fine. But like what young player, what salary match would work? And I'm like, I was looking at Jonathan Isaac and like Cole Anthony, and like, is that what like it didn't get me excited to say the least as a recipient of the deal when you're giving up LaMelo Ball, and that's why I have him highlighted as a yellow for me and not a green like with some of the other ones.
And that's the thing, right? Like that is it's not a home run trade. You don't look at that trade and go, well, at least they got this. And then if the other things come in, then great.
Yeah.
It's a bet on a prospect type player and 2 first-round picks. And like, you're not going to get, I don't think, if you're thinking you're holding out for like 4 first-round picks like Mikal Bridges, it's not going to be the case. Okay, I think De'Aaron Fox got basically 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
And like 4 seconds. And you're talking about someone who's had a much worse injury track record. Let's go to New Orleans because it's one that we both agreed on.
Yep.
It was in your shortlist. And here's my proposed trade. A little bit of a different theme on this one. 3 first-round picks, but not including New Orleans' pick this year. All right, which
okay.
I'd like to have included that, but I just don't see there's a world where New Orleans would include that. It's like maybe if they dropped to like 7, maybe they would, but right now they're not going to, it doesn't look likely. The interesting bit here is about the matching salary, which would be DeJounte Murray, who is out with an Achilles injury for probably most of next year. It would be a pure, like, real tanking move for next season because you have nothing to replace LaMelo Ball with on the court. But you get 3 first-round picks. It'd be a 2025 first-round pick by Milwaukee, so kind of late-ish first-round pick, a 2026 first-round pick by Indiana, and a 2029 first-round pick by New Orleans. Now, DeJounte Murray, the hope would be he's signed up for 4 more years under contract. The hope would be you can rehash his value when he comes back from his Achilles tear. You can rehab that value a little bit and maybe look to move him on in 2027, 2028, when he's got 2 years left in his deal, and hopefully he'll have been starting for Charlotte. He'll be fully healthy. He'll have the chance to rebuild a little bit of that value, and he can refine some of, hopefully, again, that San Antonio form rather than the New Orleans form, which was not great even before he went down with the injury. So you get an extra first round pick with this deal, but you take back what's probably going to be viewed as negative salary for at least the next 12 months and maybe even after that as well. It's a pure rebuilding move.
Okay. I got a fun one.
Yeah. Fire away.
It's a bit of a rehab project. LaMelo for Zion. And I'm gonna need a pick for the effort.
Can we just make it a 3-way deal and add John Morant as well? We just pass around like injury-riddled problem stars who are talented for all 3 teams.
Yeah, man. Lock it in.
Who would you prefer out of Ja and Zion, out of curiosity?
Zion.
Me too. I'd go Zion too. Yeah, I agree.
And then plus the way this contract structured, if it doesn't like the non-guarantees in his contract, there's that safety net where yes, you'd give something up to get him, but you're not married to it. And if it continues down this path and he just never plays like 40 games a season again. So like when I looked at New Orleans as a potential landing spot, they have plenty of picks to choose from, right? But I'm going to need Zion in return. And so 1 first-round pick, Zion Williamson for LaMelo Ball.
Sorry, you're saying New Orleans to send out a first-round pick?
Yeah, I need a pick from New Orleans plus Zion for LaMelo.
If I was the Pelicans, I would be like, there's no way I'm doing that unless Charlotte's sending a first-round pick as well. And that's why I don't think it like works out. I just think if you were to move on from Zion, you'd be like, we're fed up of this, like, childish, unserious player who doesn't take things the right way and isn't the leader and the alpha we want him to be. Let's go trade for LaMelo Ball. And I'd
argue, I think LaMelo has more value than Zion today. And that's where I'm coming from. I think
I disagree with you. And it's fine, right? Because this is like,
I think Zion has higher upside.
They're both mercurial like talents, right? With spotty availability. So I think it's really cut and dry. Mm-hmm. I feel, I guess I would disagree with you. And I think the rest of the league, I would say 75% would side Zion roughly. When I look at player rankings, trade rankings, those things, most often Zion is ahead of LaMelo.
Yeah, but we know like part of that is people don't like LaMelo.
Yes, that's true.
Like just blanket.
And people do like Zion.
They do. And I view LaMelo as a more reliable star than Zion Williamson. And I think New Orleans would have to give up a first round pick to get him.
Wow.
And move on from Zion. Zion comes from North Carolina. They can swap number 1 jerseys, so there's no issue there. And it's a fresh start for everybody.
Look, it's a fascinating one. I do agree. There's moments in time where, like, I would have thought it was maybe possibly likely. Like, if you could freeze at a moment of time where Zion got injured again and LaMelo was on his like really hot start to the year, if you were to have this conversation with me then, I think I'd be on board with you. Zion finished this year really, really strong. And like, it just feels like the momentum, like 2 stocks that have kind of like both gone up and down and at times have passed each other like a few times. But it's a fascinating one. I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd do LaMelo for Zion in a heartbeat. Straight up. I wouldn't even do it for the first round pick. I wouldn't feel great about it. It would be like, if I'm trying to save my job and I want to roll the dice, maybe that's what I do. It's gambling. It's not kind of really reliable team building, but I would do it.
But I think it goes back for the same like Murray thought. Like if this isn't we're gonna make a playoff push type of move. Like if it clicks, it clicks. Like Zion, when it's on. But if nothing changes and this Zion continues to not finish seasons it fits in line with the Hornets not being very good still. Like it's a push, right? And it also provides an out if it goes really bad. And they can surrender that cap space and do something different with that vacancy. And they don't have that. The Hornets don't have that type of language in LaMelo, right? If he's getting ankle surgery every season or missing 20, 30 games every year, they don't have that out. This gives
that's why I do it. Part of the reason I would do it. Interesting one. The Kings. This one was LaMelo Ball for DeMar DeRozan, who would be in Charlotte for a quick coffee stop and then hopefully moved off somewhere else to another team looking for value. He's in it for, he's in it for, DeMar doesn't want to be in Charlotte. Charlotte doesn't want DeMar. It'd be like Kyle Lowry being with the Hornets, hopefully. Yeah. Then Devin Carter, who is again, interesting young player, was really popular around the draft. Again, I think has some of the characteristics and intangibles that the Hornets front office and Charles Lee look for in a player from how they play the game, and 2 first-round picks. It's kind of similar, again, to the earlier deal, the Orlando Magic deal, where it's like a young prospect who, like, if you like him, could have value of a first-round pick, and then 2 firsts. I think my point in this, and when speaking to people around the league, getting to that 3 firsts or more number, to get there, the first either have to be like really weak first-round picks with very limited upside, or you have to be like taking on bad salary or injured players or something of that nature. Like the negotiations I started getting around, you're looking at a couple of first round picks for LaMelo. And some people will be listening to this going, well, if that's the case, then don't trade him. They shouldn't trade him. And if that's the case, that's okay. Mm-hmm. I understand having that point of view. Like you have a certain level, and if you reach that level, I'd trade LaMelo Ball. And for other people, they might be going, you can get positive trade value for LaMelo Ball, who's played how many games in the last 3 years? Like, you have to pull the trigger now, because if there's another ankle injury next year, he could go from having trade value to being, a DeJounte Murray type, where it's like you have to attach things to get rid of the contract. So it's an incredible situation, because there's so many people. I mean, you shouldn't do this. I'm reading the comments about my article after people have read it on Reddit, believe it or not. That was a poor choice of words. And you have certain people going, this guy is an idiot, as in me. This guy's an idiot. Like, how can you not think the Hornets have to move on from LaMelo Ball? He's never available. He's an unserious basketball player. Then you have people in the next very comment saying, oh my God, skipping this. I can't believe we're going to read another trade LaMelo article. He's the only good thing in the Hornets. They've not built a good team around him. How is he the problem? And like, everyone has seen the same reality. They've all seen it play out to this point, and people have completely different views. And there's really not many situations where you get this like divisive view within one fan base on the situation, which is pretty cut and dry. Like everyone has all the facts. It's just bizarre.
It is. But like it goes back to like the Hornets were willing to part with Mark Williams, and once the Mavericks traded Luka, like how can anyone be off limits now? Like it's a conversation that everybody in that front office should be having, weighing it up, figuring out what his value is. And then honestly, I think we talked about it before, but I think they should ask LaMelo if he wants to be part of this or not. Like wants to be part of this. Like, hey man, this is going to take longer than we thought. Maybe are you up for another 2 years of this? Not that he has to demand it.
That would be a best case scenario.
Yeah.
If they could get to a point where LaMelo's like, I don't know if I want to be part of it. Like, I give you permission to go try and find a trade, but if you can't find one, I'm also like happy to be back.
Yeah.
That would be like the best case scenario, where the team could canvas the league without worrying they're going to upset LaMelo, who's been nothing but loyal to them. Yeah. When he, a lot of people said he maybe shouldn't have been as loyal as he has been. That would be the perfect outcome, I think. Because you start trying to find it off the record, and LaMelo finds out, and his camp finds out, then people's feelings get hurt, and those bridges can get burnt quickly.
and then you potentially lose leverage if it's publicly known he wants out, and then you lose that negotiation stance, right? And look, my whole thing with this is I'm not trying to trade LaMelo because he's bad. I'm trying to trade LaMelo because he's good, and the Hornets are bad, and they can cash in and put it's a win-win-win for everybody. Whatever team gets him, for LaMelo and for the Hornets, who at this pace, at this rate, aren't going to be in the playoffs anytime soon. So why not cash in on a guy who can bring you back a nice return?
Very well put.
Two more of mine.
Yes,
Toronto and Brooklyn. Toronto, I have no idea what they're trying to do, to be honest with you. Brandon Ingram, all this stuff. They're moving weird. I just looked at them as a team with tradable guys, like 1-to-1 contracts and good talents. So for them, you're looking at some of their picks, 1 or 2 of their picks, and maybe a Quickly, a Barrett, something like that to get a deal done. Don't love it, but that's where I looked at like them as trade partners. And then Brooklyn, similarly, with Cam Johnson or Nick Claxton and their picks for LaMelo. 2 teams that don't really have a direction, that don't have a real like offensive system. Because like looking at the teams that I said no to that aren't particularly great, but LaMelo would be a disruptor. Like you kind of have to change everything around. That's nothing when you look at trade partners. Like what does the receiving team look like with him, and what do they have to change? And so Toronto, Brooklyn, they're pretty malleable, I'd say, in their future state. And LaMelo can and they can shape it around LaMelo. But I don't feel great about it. And so for me, my favorite partner would be Portland or New Orleans. In the given what we discussed, like I try to find something with Washington, but I don't really want any of their players, to be honest with you. Outside of Sarr, that's not gonna get it done for me. And then Philly, like they're maybe kind of desperate and up against it, but they're not moving Maxey, right? Like they're not gonna do Paul. Like it's not gonna. There's nothing makes sense there for me. And then Utah was another one that was on my like maybe pile. They want to be bad, but they like why would they do that? Like every team in the league would love to trade with Utah because they have all those picks and young players, but it doesn't make sense. Like marketing, maybe do that, marketing pick, but Utah wants to be a bad team, so that doesn't make sense to me. So, given it all, and I also really wanted Chicago to work just to make that.
Kobe White's too good now,
but it doesn't. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. There's no room. Giddey's too fire, and Giddey, Kobe White, like it's too much. It's too much. So. It narrows in quick when you start digging into potential trade candidates, unless someone like Milwaukee or Houston or the Clippers or the Mavericks really want to blow things up, right? Like with Dame and with Dame's health issues, Milwaukee becomes desperate. Maybe they become a player, right? Houston if they want to move like Jalen Green or Şengün or something
Fred
like that.
VanVleet's a free agent this offseason, I believe. So there's there's that work there. Yeah, there are like there's the 2 teams that are like playoff teams who definitely need a point guard for next season are Orlando and Houston. Then you've got a bunch of teams searching for relevancy, like you talked about Brooklyn, New Orleans, Toronto, Sacramento, who kind of caught in that like middle zone, and those are the teams just like they could just be like trying to claw into that playoff race and searching for relevancy, and could view LaMelo Ball as, hey, pretty good guy to market, like the shoes, the popularity. He also fits the team need. But yeah, I think there's 4 to 8 places that really make sense in the league, and 1 or 2 more could open up over the course of the offseason. What percentage chance would you put it at that LaMelo Ball is back on the Hornets next year?
I would say 75. Just because there hasn't been any this is reported like movement for that or push for that. So it'd be in that 25% is just from a common sense point. Like that's just from it makes sense to explore that and do that. Not because it's being reported that it's going to happen. I think it's just something that they should think about. So I'm giving them 25% just for that.
I will say 60%. Slightly more than half. It's always like safer to say no in these situations, like franchise players just rarely get traded. But I would have been at probably like 95% plus for the last 3 years. That's significantly dropped this offseason. So that's where I'm at.
And also, I don't care about trading him inside the division at all. Just for the record, like with Orlando,
not even considered it being a problem.
Like, it's just for anyone listening, they're like, well, we got to play him all. Like, I don't care. Get the best deal regardless of the destination.
Yeah, agreed. Sam, that's going to do it all. Longer episode today. We went long, but all good conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Next week, we're going to have our annual award show. We're going to be going over a bunch of fun categories. MVP of the team, Apex Mountain, the Kelly Oubre Award for a guy who chucks most shots, best dunk of the year, best assist of the year, best moment of the year, worst moment of the year. We got a bunch of categories. We're going to run them through. A really nice way to put a bow on the end of another forgettable regular season. But it's always interesting to go through and do it. So looking forward to next week's episode. And Sam, I'll speak to you then.